Another theme that I noticed throughout the documentary is as African Americans, we have a culture where the lie is more palatable. Even within our own dysfunctional families, the lie is more palatable for us than the truth. The lie is more palatable than the truth. We live with the lie. We live with the lie at the expense of our own well being, our own healthiness, our own mental well being. We live with the lie. How many lies in our families as African Americans are we living with right now? Right? We live with the lie. The African American Muslim community in Newark, New Jersey has been living with this lie for decades that the Nation of Islam had nothing to do with the murder of Malcolm X. Yet, the one appalling thing that we saw in that documentary was that every single person the brother Abdurrahman went to automatically knew that this certain individual was the gunman, the shotgun man, the guy who was responsible for killing Malcolm X. It was almost like it was common knowledge. It was almost like it was common knowledge. And I'm from that area. So for me, it's like, you have got to be kidding me. Some of the people that were on the documentary, I know personally. I've prayed next to, I've worked alongside of. And I'm sitting here like shaking my head, like, you got to be kidding me. Y'all knew this whole time? It was common knowledge to everybody. And I'm just like mind blown. I mean, our old heads, man, subhanAllah, man, let us down, man. Our old heads, man. This was the, this was the truth that y'all chose to omit. The next our generation, man, like we couldn't even have closure. I mean, we didn't even know that Malcolm was actually that connected to us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I read about Malcolm X in prison. I converted to Islam after reading his autobiography almost 3 times. Never knew that people from not necessarily my city, but in my territory, my parts, you know what I mean? Like, was responsible for, taking this man off of this earth, man. Crazy. And then walking around Newark like it was, then went back to jail for some other crimes. Like, it's not like you murdered Malcolm, you felt bad about it, you made Toba, you realized you were wrong, and you changed your life, man. You went back to a life of crime right after you did that. You went back to a life of crime after that was done. And it was like it was common knowledge that everybody, all the old heads in the city of Newark knew, the real story. The real story. For years, we're being told that it was the FBI, CIA, some people, the Nation of Islam, but the Nation of Islam steady saying, no, we had nothing to do with it. And it's just like, this whole time, it was like it was common knowledge. Yeah, we know. And then everybody you go to is just like, yeah, but we don't talk about that. We tuck that under the rug. We sweep that under the prayer rug, mashallah, tabarakallah. Yeah, I mean, so we like to live with the lie, and even pass the lie down on to our children, man. Like, I hung out with people. I hung out with people who I remember it was this girl in our neighborhood. She got pregnant, and she was messing with two dudes. She was messing with two dudes, and she got pregnant, and she didn't even know who the kid's father was, man. And she just said it was yours. It's yours. And the lie that they fed the kid. You know what I mean? Like, you're telling this kid his entire life that this guy is his father. Meanwhile, you as the mother, you don't even really know who the hell the father is. Here again, we'll live with the lie for years rather than sitting down and say, hey, I was a teenager when I had you, you know, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna be completely transparent with you. I really don't know who your father is. But we'll live with the lie. We'll live with the lie. That's part of our culture, to live with the lie. A girl is molested in the family by her uncle, by her cousin, molested, touched in the wrong way, in the most inappropriate way by an adult in the family. And then the mother finds out about it. And what do? We bury it. We bury that truth. We bury that truth. Don't say nothing to nobody. Don't tell nobody. We're going to live with this lie all the way out. Meanwhile, this same uncle shows up at family gatherings, and the little niece or the little girl that was molested, that was raped by this guy, she got to sit there at the table with this guy, knowing what this guy has done, but to spare the family. We're going to live with the lie. We're going to bury the truth. We're going to live with the lie. That's what goes on in many black families. Goes on in other families as well, but I'm not talking about other families. I'm talking about our stuff right here. I am Malcolm X today. I'm holding up the mirror today. And it's sad, man. This girl got to sit at the table and watch this uncle come in the kitchen who molested her in the bathroom, in the bedroom somewhere, and watch him come in the kitchen and get a plate and say nothing. Sit there with that trauma, all to not destroy the family, right? We live with the lie. We bury the truth and we live with the lie. And the thing about it is that they say when you sweep something under the rug long enough, you'll eventually end up tripping on what has piled up underneath it. If you sweep something under the rug long enough, you'll end up tripping on what has piled up underneath it. Meaning the skeletons in the closet eventually come back to haunt us all. And we are probably not even aware that in the African American Muslim community, especially in the Newark area, the African American Muslim community, a dark cloud looms over those communities simply because there was a huge injustice that was done to a man, and there was never any closure brought to that situation. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, pay attention to this. Pay attention to this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. And fear a fitna, fear a trial or tribulation that may not only affect the wrongdoers from amongst you. Meaning, a group of people can do something wrong, a huge injustice. And because that situation was not rectified, the consequences of that injustice not only affects the perpetrators who are responsible for it, but can also affect their family members. This is what we call a generational curse. Real. That's a fact. You think that you can do an injustice to people, and you think that consequences of that injustice is not going to come back to you. It may come back to you. It's for sure going to come back to you, but it may also come back to your children. It may come back to your grandchildren. It may come back to a whole community of people because of an injustice that one individual did that everybody knew about, and nobody did a damn thing about it. Nobody did a damn thing about it. And I'm not saying that he should have been retaliated against. I'm not advocating violence. But hell, we didn't have to send him off, to his maker with, this grandiose janaza. And I'm looking at like, damn, like they gave him a better janaza than Malcolm X had. I'm just appalled. I'm just appalled. I'm not saying you had to retaliate, but what I am saying is that, didn't the Prophet ﷺ refuse to pray over certain people? I'm sure there's some people in the Newark area right now that if I died today and my janaza was held in East Orange somewhere, that there's some people who ain't coming to my janaza because I'm still a deviant in their eyes. I'm still a deviant in their eyes. But you have a guy amongst you who was responsible for murdering one of the most influential African American Muslims of our time. And everybody shows up at the janaza like, this guy was a saint. And I'm going to come to the comment that Amin made about, him making Hajj and making Toba. And I'm not here to judge anybody, but when you make an incorrect statement about Islam, those who know, it becomes their responsibility to correct that. It becomes their responsibility. But think about that generational curse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, in fear of fitna that will not only affect the wrongdoers from amongst you. And then you look at the track record of Islam in that area amongst African Americans. It has been nothing but strife, has been nothing but trial, tribulating, in-house fighting, in-house separation, fragmenting. Every time a community opens, a group breaks off, opens up another community, breaks off, splintering, till now you look at the children of many of those who, were the pioneers of Sunni Islam in those areas, man. Where are their children? Where are the Hufaz of Quran? Where are those that are going to, protect the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Where? What happened? And it's possible that this fitna that Allah is talking about in this ayah, it's possible that we didn't escape that. We didn't escape that because there was an injustice that was done and it was never corrected. Don't you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inni haramtu dhulm ala nafsi wa ja'altuhu baynakum muharrama fala tadhalamu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Hadith al-Qudsi that indeed I have made dhulm, I have made injustice haram upon me. Meaning Allah himself, God himself will not oppress anybody. وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا. As Allah says in the Quran, and your Lord will not do any injustice to anybody. That I have made dhulm, I have made oppression and injustice something that is forbidden for me. وَجَعَلْتُهُ بَيْنَكُمْ مُحَرَّمًا. And I have made it forbidden for you all. فَلَا تُظَالِمُوا. So don't do injustice to one another. Don't oppress one another. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates injustice. Because injustice, let me tell you one of the reasons why God hates injustice. Because when you do an injustice to someone, it may possibly lead to them denying the existence of God. It will possibly lead to them disbelieving in God. Think about how many people we know an injustice was done to in the Muslim community and they left Islam. Right? Think about how many people we know in the Muslim community and injustice was done to them, whether it was a woman in a marriage who some injustice was done to her, and as a result of that injustice, she goes to the masjid trying to get, the matter dealt with. She's told on one occasion, oh, you didn't get married here, so we can't help you. She's told on another occasion, oh, just fear Allah and be patient. She's told on another, and all of these things, la yusminu wa la yughni min ju'. They do not satisfy, satiate. They don't satisfy the situation. So the injustice remains. And what ends up happening to the woman? She ends up leaving Islam because the injustice wasn't rectified. Nobody was thinking about Malcolm's children. I mean, like, what happens to his children now? Do you really think they want to be associated or affiliated with a religion where if you say the wrong thing, one of your own brothers is going to murder you? Or, you could be infiltrated. This whole brotherhood of Islam, the Nation of Islam's brotherhood, couldn't have possibly been that strong. The FBI had informants all over and all throughout the Nation of Islam. Don't talk to me about brotherhood. That's bullcrap. Don't talk to me about brotherhood. What brotherhood? When you will pull a pistol out and blow the brains out of another brother, right? Because the FBI got you, cornered. You don't want to go back to jail. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Then you talk about brotherhood. What brotherhood? I mean, it goes on in the Sunni Muslim community as well. They come to the masjid recording your khutbahs or whatever, and then with Salaam alaikum, brother, and then, we're all supposed to be one brotherhood. Like, come on, man, miss me with that. Every brother ain't your brother. And that's a fact. You can miss me with all of that stuff, man. But the point that I'm making is that injustice was never rectified. That injustice was never rectified. And injustice is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abhors. He hates. And not only was the injustice never rectified, we walked around and ignored it like it was nothing. That man walking around North New Jersey was what he represented in essence was a huge injustice that he did to somebody else. And everybody around him knew it, and nobody said anything. Meanwhile, we shouting from the rooftops about how much haq we on, how much truth we on, how much lovers of truth we are. And it's all a farce, man. So it is possible that this injustice, set off or created a cycle of social dysfunction in an environment, right? And has crippled many African American Islamic communities all the way up until today. There was no closure with that situation from the people who knew exactly what happened. There were those of us who were just completely ignorant. Completely ignorant. We didn't know anything. But then there were those on the inside who really knew what happened. And you live with that. Live with the lie.